look at some real life examples now. Let's have a look at some people's technique. So we'll talk about reiterate the principles that we've used today, and we'll put all the examples here in the context of what we've been covering. So this looks a pretty damn good rack position. Looks like it's rolling forward a little bit in that rack. I would say that I think if Dan did this, if Dan did the drill that we've just covered, started off his session with the weight overhead and did a super slow eccentric. So I know he's doing it here, but even slower, I think. Well, you can actually see because he does the eccentric here, and Dan does the eccentric here. It's positionally wrong, and that's why when he receives it, as he receives it here, the log almost rolls forward and he almost drops it. And I know it's pretty heavy, but positionally it's out. And I would say that he wants I think we should be, if we could see inside that log a little bit more. So this bit of the log here from this angle, we shouldn't be able to see the metal bit, I don't think. And I think if he basically finished it, got the handle, so the handle's essentially pointing up, say they're at 45 degrees, say putting them up to maybe 50 to 60 and having a play with that, I think he's going to have an easier time controlling the leg drive when he goes to press. So he finishes there. So essentially, so what he'd have to do to finish in that position, he'd have to have where he's got the log handles pointing down, I reckon don't have them pointing down quite as much. So see less into the log here will result into him finishing the clean in a slightly different position with the handles pointing a little bit more up, which in turn will give him a little bit easier time to see. By the way, his dip's very good, right? Vertical torso, his feet are staying planted, exploding up pretty well. But I just think he's using. I don't think can commit to that dip and drive 100% because of that rack position being slightly out. He's fighting against that log wanting to roll if he gives it full whack. And I suspect that improving that rack position and getting that logs up, try the handles up another 5 degrees or so, I think you're going to have a whale of a time. I think it's going to be a lot easier to do. And then the split jerk's just going to clean up if he improves that dip and drive, because the footwork, I know what he's like on the axle and barbell, and his footwork's really good. His timing's excellent. But I just think tidying up that dip and drive, giving your dip and drive an easier time to be able to control by owning that rack, by altering the rack position a little bit. So Dan also asked the question about the pickup feeling pretty heavy. So if you look at Dan in relation to the log looks absolutely huge compared to Dan. So Dan's, what is it, between 65, 70 kilos. So the log in terms of his actual mass as a human is really big compared to him in terms of proportions. So because the log, unlike a barbell, he's always going to have like a lot of the mass of the log that's away in front of him. So in the pickups, it's always going to feel quite difficult because of the sheer mass that's in front of, basically the mass of the log compared to the mass of his body that's behind the log is proportionally big, isn't it? So a way that Dan can offset this somewhat in the pickup, because Dan's reported that the like say the clean feels pretty good, the press and jerk feels pretty good, but the the pickup often feels quite heavy. So what Dan could do to offset this is he could pick up the he could pick if he picks up his hand sorry picks up the log by the handles here rather than keeping it central. He's doing it a little bit here because I cued him to do it the other day. But if he literally just picked it up here, not only has he got a higher pickup point, the he's making the thing that he's producing for he's making where he's producing force on the log a lot closer to his kind of center of mass. So the pickup is going to feel a lot easier if he moves his hand up and just picks up from there, and also a shorter range of motion. But what he's going to have to do there is practice as he pops it up here and hits the extension. He's going to have to practice popping it up explosively and then moving the hands back central to start the clean. So there's a bit of a skill requirement. So obviously I would recommend practicing this with lighter weights, but a lot of top athletes use this. Look at Dale McPherson 3D strength when he log presses, and watch his log clean. He'll often do this, and it's just brilliant watching it, and it just makes a pickup more efficient. So if you can practice that time, and it's gonna help us all. Let's have a look at Byron. Good stuff. So Byron here is using the smaller diameter log, right? And what he often does when he goes heavier, he'll usually use the 13-inch or 12-inch diameter, whereas this is maybe 10.5, 11-inch log. And I actually really like Byron's technique when he's on the bigger log. It's absolutely brilliant. But obviously for doing his volume, the log that he has access to at the gym is a bit heavy for doing the volume work. So actually what he's done, and this is the frustrating thing about logs sometimes, is the technique on the 10 and 11-inch log is going to be different than the 12 and 13-inch log. But the rack position that he's finding is absolutely brilliant on the 12-inch log, and it's different to this. So what I think here, I think the giveaway when Byron, and I don't want to change his technique too much, because when he goes to his main sets on the 12 or 13-inch log, his technique is absolutely brilliant in terms of he can put full whammy leg drive into it. The bar path is awesome. He punches ever so slightly behind in a straight line, and you can see that because the giveaway is that he keeps his head back really well, almost until he's locked out. So you'll hear Shane from MST Systems. That's one of the cues that he's popularized massively, and Tom Hibbert, about keeping the head back. And it's brilliant because this is a brilliant way for some people to learn how to find this optimal straight line bar path that's going ever so slightly back. So cueing some people to keep the head back, it just instantly fixes that. So Dale McPherson 3D strength, he uses the cue of locking out the triceps before bringing the head through. So that's another way of hammering the same thing home, but the achieving exactly the same thing, where we're trying to achieve that perfectly straight bar path where it's pushing ever so slightly back. So looking at Byron's here, what you can see here, his technique isn't as good as it is with the 13-inch log, and I'll tell you exactly why. You can see this bit here, what he's doing there. So again, let's look at the dip. I'm not going to insult Byron because his technique's awesome with the log that he uses most of the time. Let's break it down. What he's really good at. So the dip, where a lot of people make the error, is look at the torso. The torso is bolt upright. It's perfect. But as he starts the drive, his elbows have dropped. And a lot of people would keep the elbows up, which I'm not a fan of doing that, because he probably knows that his elbows are dropping. So actually cueing him to keep his elbows up is probably just going to annoy him actually, because he knows it's already he's not know that he knows that that's the problem, but we want to know we want to we should be learning how to fix it. And the big error here is that this might appear to some people that his rack position's really good because he's got his elbows up really nice and high, but I think his elbows are too high. He's put like his forearms are pointing forward, his his arms are like pointing back like that. His arms are not in like. Imagine that he was going to try and strict press this now. His upper body is in a really poor position to produce force. It's to produce force in the direction that we want it to. So I think as soon as he starts to dip, that the elbows are in such an unrealistic position to maintain. And so I actually think the opposite of the previous video, and what Byron should be aiming to do, where he's got let's say he's got the handles at say a right angle to floor 90 degrees. I think that Byron might have more success in controlling this dip and drive if he allows the if he has the handles tilted forward a little bit more. So maybe for Byron on that log, maybe playing around between 80 and 70 degrees roughly. But again, use the tip that we've covered in the main section of the fundamentals of let the eccentric tell you. So I know he's doing floor to overhead here, but I suspect that if Byron gets it overhead a moderate way, and then does a really nice slow eccentric, and then does a few reps from the chest to warm up, I reckon that he's going to find that even on that one there, that position there, where it's more like 85 degrees there, that's going to be easier and more successful than. Well, actually, look at it. That's the position that the log's actually going to as he goes to drive out of it. It's ever so slightly forward. So I think actually starting nearer that position, Byron, rather than the handles being at 90 degrees, maybe around 80-ish or between 80 and 70, I think you're going to have a better success with fluidity in terms of controlling the elbows from dropping. Look at So I really like Ethan's technique. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Nice. And the giveaway is, the reason why his technique's so good is he's pushing pretty hard here, right? And the giveaway, if somebody can grind like that, you see people who like say beginners, and their arcs out in the dip and drives way out in front, so they come to a bit where they grind and they just drop straight away. And you see advanced athletes who have got a bit of a subtle arc that looks pretty good in terms of leg drive, but it's ever so slightly out in front, and you might not even notice until you look from the side. But then the giveaway is they get to this grind point and they're in such a poor position to produce force vertically that they fail, or they have a bit of a grind and then, I don't know, pass out sometimes. That's what happens to me when I've failed and I've lost the dip ever so slightly forward. I go to grind out and I can't, because I'm in such a because I've lost the position forward. So credit to Ethan here. The positioning is really, really good. That he's pushing it back pretty much straight line, and that's buying the ability to grind. Let's also reinforce what's good here. So what's also lovely here is he's popping up nicely on that initial pick. So he's able to, as he picks here, he's able to get another breath before he descends here. Then he goes down here, nicely up onto the toes. Fantastic. And then he finishes in that rack position, and then the rack position that's really good. And then the giveaway that is really good is the fact that he can start the dip and drive almost straight away. I think subtly, if we watch this video from the side, we might see that his we might see that maybe it's rolling ever so slightly, but it's really, really good and better than 95% of log presses that you'll see. And that's why he's got the ability to grind a rep. But yeah, I think if Ethan thinks about ever so slightly punching behind him rather than just vertically up, I think that'll clean up the rep. And I think with somebody whose techniques is as clean and as nice as Ethan's, I actually think that Ethan has the tendency sometimes to be a bit careful and deliberate and beautiful with all his technique stuff. I think if Ethan takes a bit, like say 5% more intent into his next session and just focus on being explosive, I think he's gonna feel better. Like that's a big thing to think of. If your technique's really good or feels pretty good, I think just banging it with more intent and being more explosive, that's the key. Add speed on top of good technique. I think a lot of people make the error of trying to be fast and then optimizing technique as they go along. Whereas I think you should be layering speed work on top of good technique. So I would say, Ethan, next time you warm up, do some more work with, like, say, the empty log, say 50-60%, and just get it moving like a torpedo. And then go up to your working weights and try and hit the working weights with the same intent. And I think it's just going to feel easy. And I think you're going to hit PB very soon, mate. So we actually analysed his log technique, log clean and split jerk, very recently. And it's absolutely amazing that he's gone and implemented exactly what we're saying. It's absolutely crazy. So for me, it gives reinforcement that this kind of delivery of coaching is really effective, because we've given him about 3 or 4 cues in the video that I did recently with Joe, the log 101, and he's gone and applied these, and it just looks amazing. And I think he said that this is 10 kilos heavier than the previous one as well. So things that he's done really well, he's popped up onto the toes here on the pick that he wasn't doing last time. He was very flat-footed last time I saw a vid. And then the log clean, he's just let loose. His arms look like really nice and relaxed, and he's exploding up powerfully up onto the toes. Beautiful. And the rack position that he's finishing now, that looks really good. And the giveaway is similar to what I've said before about his elbows look high, but they don't look like they're in a position that he's having. It doesn't look like he's creating that high elbow position by pushing with the arms. It looks like the log's in a really good position, and the handles are tilted at the right angle for him on that particular log, and that's why he can go and apply leg drive. There's a subtle tilt forward in the drive that most of us are going to need to clean up. But because it was a lot better than last time in terms of bar path and in terms of controlling the roll, the giveaway is that even though he's jerking or pressing, it doesn't matter. The giveaway is that he's got to this receiving position really, really easily. And then if you're jerking, it makes the jerk in turn so much easier to stabilize, because you stabilize in a weight that's just going in a straight line rather than having to kind of correct and being inconsistent. So yeah, great job. The other thing that he's doing really well compared to last time, he's being really, really brave and deliberate with that front foot. He's like, last time he was short stepping it and therefore just not getting underneath the log quite as much as he could. And now he's exploding through with that front foot. So great job. Keep up the good work. So this is brilliant, by the way, because what this lady said to me, she said, I'm not going to send a video of log this week because I'm resting my pressing, or I'm having a week off pressing because she's managing a bit of an injury or niggle or whatever. So I said to her, I said, practice the clean, add the clean, because the clean is so important. That's what I covered at the start of this video, the fact that you a lot of people struggle with a lot of people struggle with the press of a log, because actually they haven't got used to delivering the clean or receiving the clean in a good position. So you can practice that without doing any pressing. So she's working around her niggle here, but also getting some invaluable practice that next time that she goes to do log, she's going to have been able to tweak and find little things in this session that's not going to steal away from the rest of her training, but that's going to directly transfer to that log. So next time that you say, even if you feel like your upper body's a bit tired or whatever, or your knees are a bit tired because you've been doing presses, push presses and jerks and stuff, you might find that just practice having a session doing log cleans, or what she's doing here really well is doing a log clean and dip. So yeah, great work and great cleans. So what I would say here, how we can optimize this. So absolutely brilliant in terms of power, nice low pickup. She's keeping her arms long in the pick, which is great. This is a thing that Dan could do with improving. He's sometimes like bicep curling it from the floor a little bit. So keep your arms long. What's great is that her hips and the shoulders rise at the same time. She's not getting pulled over the log anymore as she picks. So fantastic. As she goes to dip here, she's exploding through the lower body here. Big thing that what's going to help her with the press is actually clean into the position up onto her toes explosively, but then immediately as she finishes the clean, popping down to a position there, basically learning how to control the log, where what she's having to do is she's almost put a bit too much power into it. She's landed her weight through her heels and then had to recalibrate her feet to bring central. So you can picture this, guys who train log. Like, how often do you do this, where you land on your heels, have to re-centralize, and then by the time you go to dip and drive, the press feels really, really hard, and you think, oh, it's the press where I failed, or the press doesn't feel good today. Whereas actually, it's just from the clean. So get that clean landing in the right spot every time. So if you refer back to Ethan's video before, Ethan lands in that perfect position where he can transition straight into the dip and drive straight away, where his feet are flat on the ground. So that's something that you can tidy up. And then in terms of the rack position here, you can see that the dip's pretty good. It's really good, but it looks like the arms are working a little bit there to keep that log in that position. So I maybe try where angling the log handles down ever so slightly, a couple of degrees, and you may find that you find it a little bit more easier to stabilize that rack. Maybe 5 degrees or something. Just yeah, let me know how that goes if you try that. So great work. Let's have a look at Quantic here. Brilliant. Nice work. So really good. So nice pick from the floor. So I think say he was going for max log. Obviously, this isn't too heavy for him in his strong deadlift. But I think a thing that's going to help him with low pickup is doing the thing what we said to Dan before about lifting with the hands closer to the top, and then his start position is going to be higher for the initial deadlift. He's going to feel stronger, but also he's going to be closer, and it's going to be less force through the back. And then as he picks up here, then he can pop and rearrange the hands. But obviously that's going to take a little bit of skill to get used to. So you'd have to drill that with lighter weights. But I'd say definitely that's something that you can improve. That's going to make the efficiency even easier. And I would say that as he drives up here, up onto the toes, it looks really powerful. And the rack position looks really, really good here, actually. The angle here looks excellent. So what I would say that what he's doing here is jumping out with jumping out with the feet ever so slightly. That left foot's moving out. So what I would say is establish the ideal foot width to do your push press from, and then because the clean's always going to be easier than the push press, then look to start and finish your clean in that position rather than jumping out or jumping in. Like actually start with your if your foot position feels really good there for the push press, then reverse that and actually start and finish your log clean from that position and indeed the pick. And then you know that in this position here, you're going to be straight to transition into the press. So looks pretty good, looks really strong, uses the upper body well, nice leg drive. But I would say that if you slow mode this from the side, I'd say that log's tilting forward ever so slightly as you begin the drive. So a cue that'll work. He's keeping his head back nicely, but it's still rolling. So I would say a thing that's going to massively help him is if he thinks of that straight line, but punching the log ever so slightly behind him rather than vertically up. And I think that exactly the same weight next week is going to absolutely fly. Let's look at Kian here. So brilliant, Kian, right? I like this. Right. So what he's done here. Let's have a look at the pick. So what we're saying to Dan here and Quansit is start with the initial pick with the hands closer to this end that Kian does really well, and then as he pops it up, he swaps his hand over. So watch this. This is majestic. Bang. You see how he moves the hand there? So it gives him an easier pick, but then he's central to finish the clean. What I don't like here is, well, let's say that he's doing well, right? The rack position looks good. Looks really good. Yeah, the dip looks pretty good. Rack, dip, the log's not rolling. He's controlling the log really well. So what I don't like here is the fact that here, giveaway is, right, if you see people whose log spins, it spins like that, right? And that spin is because, to me, it looks like basically his leg drives run out here, pretty much, and then he's using his like a wrist flick or a bicep curl to finish it off. So then, when we really, really need it here, or further up the chain on the press, that's where he needs to be saving his upper body strength from. He's wasting. It's an opportunity cost here. Whereas I just think, well, a giveaway here that Kian, if he it puts exactly the same effort in, but just pops up onto his toes and he doesn't extend his knee with much intent here. Ankles, knees, and hips with more intent on the log cleans. And he's going to finish that and he's going to be able to keep his arms more relaxed and save it for the press. So, Kian, next time, whatever I've said to you to do in your program, add something like 3 sets of 3 cleans at 70, 80 kilos before your next log session. And just aim to get it flying. Let loose with this, the knee and the ankles explosively. And get that log finishing in the rack position without bringing the upper body into play. Yeah. Let's have a look at the press. So the press is, I really like the press actually, in terms of path and controlling of the rack position. I do think that he's going to benefit from pressing behind ever so slightly. To tidy it up even more, because it looks like his finishing position there. And don't get me wrong, like, he's probably going to get the down command at comp. But the thing is, if it was like a really, really maximal weight there, say he held 140, 150 there, he's going to feel really tough and his upper body's going to be smoked and he's going to get pulled forward. Whereas if he's finished the rep there, if he gets his like head through or actually finishes the rep and just like punch the log back a little bit, like if he drops the log from the overhead finishing position, should finish on the crown of your head. Yeah, and it should be where the joints are stacked. And that finding that true position is going to feel more efficient for you in terms of energy expenditure. So find that position, you're going to be able to hold it for longer. So I think from the rack position, punching back. And then also I think maybe as a secondary thing, it's somewhere between a push press and a jerk. This, so I would say try and split them up and try and do, instead of doing like a semi pressy jerk, do a true push press where you just focus on the dip and drive and optimizing the line, and then try a power jerk for skill where you focus on doing the same line, but instead of just kind of rebending the knee a little bit, like actually try and jump out a little bit with the feet. So I'm going to show one more of Kian's videos that he's sent. Right? So this is actually 130. This is, oh my god, that's so much better. Oh my god, look at the clean here. Right, you can see the intent. This is absolutely ridiculous. Look at the intent here. Bang. Completely different. Yeah. So he's got a lot more energy here. That it's just brilliant. That spin's gone. He's not using the upper body to finish the rep. He's actually almost using the upper body, if anything, to decelerate the log and stop his head being taken off. So if anything here, like he's gone too much power. Yeah, which by the way is a skill thing, and it's yeah, just practicing next time. So what I've said about next session about doing 3x3 at say 70, 80 kilos, do that next session, practicing exactly the same intent that you're doing today, but just practice scaling that intent of, so the timing of exploding through the upper body, the ankle, knees, and hips, like you're doing really, really well, like actually scaling it so it finishes on that position, like Ethan's clean before, where it finishes up perfectly on midfoot. So you're not having to use the upper body to accelerate like you were in the previous video, and you're not having to use the upper body you don't use the upper body to decelerate here. You actually land on your heels and then have to recalibrate and scamper your feet. So it's just going to make that transition it's going to be more energy efficient, because it's going to make that transition easier for into the press. You're going to be ready to go into it straight away. This is brilliant, honestly. And that line of the press is just, honestly, so good. And you're going to hit 140 soon for sure. And you can actually see, so it's like the path is really good here. He's like punching, it looks like he's punching behind ever so slightly. That's why the log's not rolling. So like, it looks brilliant, mate, honestly. So it looks like he's pressing, he's extending powerful here, and then he's rebending the knee. So it's like a push jerk, isn't it? So the push jerk compared to a power jerk is where the push jerk, you rebend the knee and get underneath the bar, but then the feet start and finish at the same width. Whereas the power jerk is the same timing, but your feet move ever so slightly out. So just thinking about trying next time you do some jerks, instead of maybe even draw some chalk lines on the floor as a little target, where you explode and then jump out ever so slightly. So you're not just getting the benefit of rebending the knee, you're actually a little bit lower because you're wider. So fantastic job, Kian. I am well impressed with this. So final one for today. We're going to have a look at this one. So log for reps here. So it looks really good in terms of she's using a lower body well in terms of the pickup. Looks really good. In terms of the press, you can see that. And by the way, credit to her doing an honest angle from the side where you can see it just tells us the story so well. You can see that when she goes to the thing that what she needs to really focus on that's going to unlock the next level of gains and efficiency is controlling that dip and drive on the push press. So I suspect going to that fundamental cue of aiming to find that press the log in a perfectly straight line. You can see it's that subtle arc that I've described, going ever so slightly forward and then using her upper body to finish the rep. So getting it in a straight line, ever so slightly back, rather than, and that's why she gets caught on that rep, but then she could keep going by tidying it up. It looked maximal like she was going to fail, but it's just a technical error. You can see that it's probably better on this one. And you can see that one was better because you controlled the line so much better. You can see it as clear as day. So yeah, so improving the dip and drive line. So thinking about on that press, just punching ever so slightly behind you in a perfectly straight line. And if you work out how to do that, the head's going to be a little bit further back in the rack position. The head's going to remain back as you apply leg drive to the press, and the elbows are going to be a little bit further up in the rack position as a byproduct. So yeah, just think about that cue. Go back to fundamental push press mechanics that I said earlier in this video, and you're going to have a great time. So good little cue. Another little thing about this is on some of the reps, she's kind of doing a bit of a jerk somewhere between it where she's basically rebending the knee a little bit. So I think this is exciting because when she gets the line right, the timing of the jerk is pretty good. So I think this is going to be, she clearly understand, that one was pretty good. So you understand the benefit of actually rebending the knee and getting underneath the log after the dip and drive. So this is definitely something exciting to explore for her. Another little point, what she does really well, a lot of people say that on log cleans on the pick, you should be extending fully and standing up fully, regardless of the context. And to which I agree with this for max log, because that's going to now allow you to get a last breath where the log is weightless before you descend to apply the hip drive for the clean. When you're doing a log for reps and it's a really sub-maximal weight, say you're going for log for reps where you're going for 8 to 10 reps in a minute, then I actually think you're wasting quite a bit of energy by standing up fully in this. And I actually think that doing what she's doing here, where you can almost just pick, not fully extend, and then you're not having to stand up to descend into the next rep and saving that time and energy, you're actually just picking it up, not fully extending, and then you're almost in the position where you can start that log clean straight away. So that's something to explore when you're doing high reps on the log. And again, context is